church. If you are not awake yet, you're awake now. I'm sure of that. Okay. Well, we started this theme for our Serve the World month. Love everyone, everywhere you go. It's on the hoodie that I'm wearing. Paul Gunther's still trying to convince me this is not pink. He says it's a pale red. Just wear it. I love this theme because it's at the core and the heart of who we are as a church, of who I am as a person. And as this theme has been bouncing around in my mind for the last few weeks, I couldn't help but having this verse keep coming back to me over and over that I've known my whole life. I think everyone in the room has known this verse your entire life, and it's this, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. And there's that powerful line that it opens with, for God so loved the world. And I've thought this, if God in heaven loves all the people of the world, then so shouldn't we. And I have this as a key idea on the screen this morning. If God loves all the people of the world, then so should we, shouldn't we? It's such a basic, rudimentary, but it's a foundational thought and premise to who we are as Christians. And I think the question for all of us this morning is, how are you and I doing at loving all the people of the world? Not just some of them or some neighbors, but everyone. There's two moments in my life, and probably more, but two significant moments that I know have shaped my heart and my life around this principle of love everyone, everywhere you go. The first moment is, and I've shared this with most of you many times, is when at 6 years old, my family moved from Mississippi to Liberia, Africa. So as I've said before, I was born into a family my dad's from San Jose, California, and that's a family I was born into, and we lived in the San Jose area. It was an affluent family. The family had his grandfather had founded a Fortune 500 company, and so I grew up in a world of really nice homes with swimming pools and tennis courts in them. And then my father becomes a pastor and leaves the family business, and we end up in Picayune, Mississippi for just a year and a half. And that year and a half, I'm in kindergarten and a few months of first grade. And then they say we're leaving for Africa. And if I'm honest with you, over that short period of time in Mississippi, if I'm straight with you, I never did have a friend who was African American or black. I don't know if that opportunity was even there because there was no African American or black kids in my school. They didn't live in our neighborhood. They didn't go to our church. And so then we moved to Liberia, and a single-engine prop plane drops us off at a clearing at a small mission station where there's no roads, and among the Sapo people of Liberia. And of course, there's no other Americans anywhere near there, so everyone there is from the Sapo tribe. And so very quickly, my twin brother Paul and I, our only friends and our best friends, our closest friends, that we bonded with were all Liberian Sapo boys. And with those boys, every afternoon we played soccer like it was our religion. And most of them played barefoot. And then when we were done playing soccer, we'd go out in the bush and build forts. And when the mangoes were in season, we'd climb trees together and pick mangoes. At night, we'd sit around the fires behind their houses, and they would tell us stories about the bush. And then every few weeks, we would ask my mom and dad if we could have some of them over for a sleepover. You know, that's what kids do. And so we would invite some of them in, and the first thing we would do is give them pajamas because none of them had pajamas, and they loved our flannel pajamas with cowboys and horses on them. And they'd say, why do these people have those big hats? You know, why are they wearing those big hats? And And so they would sleep in our bed. In the morning, we had a hard time getting them out of bed. They would say, the sleep is too sweet. Because they were sleeping in our mattresses, in our beds, and all of them, most of them, at home, they slept on a bamboo mat on a dirt floor. In fact, when we arrived, President Tubman, his presidential motto when he ran for president was mat to mattress. Elect me president, I'll get everyone off of the bamboo mats on the dirt floors and onto a mattress. That never happened, but this is why the boys loved our bed, didn't want to get out of bed. They say, sleep is too sweet, I can't get out of bed. But then they would smell my mother's pancakes, and so then they were like, oh, they'd get out of bed quick when they smelled the pancakes, and they would come running in, because at home they're eating boiled cassava for breakfast, and boiled cassava tastes about what you would think boiled cassava tastes like. It's not that exciting, and there's no syrup on it either. Anyway, so they'd get out of bed quick, and the boys, they didn't call my mother Mrs. Chinchen or Miss Nell. They called her Mother. All of them called her Mother. In fact, because our friends called her Mother, all the kids on the mission, hundreds of them called her Mother. In fact, all of our college students in Africa call her Mother now. But all of my buddies called her Mother. Those boys became, my twin brother Paul and I, they became our band of brothers. There was no one that I've ever been closer to in my life than we were to those Sapo boys. And now fast forward a dozen years, and now I'm out of the bush, and I've gone to the capital city for high school. And at the start of our senior year, my twin brother and I are in a Peugeot taxi, and we're traveling the 200 miles from our college in the mountains to the capital city, and we get stopped at a checkpoint. And a soldier, and I've shared this before, but I need to share it because it fits my story. And so a soldier comes up to the Peugeot that we're in, and it has a third seat. It's a Peugeot station wagon. And it's all filled with Liberians except for me and my twin brother in the way back. And so he looks at everybody, he looks at us, and he says, "Get down, white boys." And I'm like, no, you got to realize I was a bit of a punk in high school, and I didn't care for his bad attitude. And I didn't like him calling me out just because of the color of my skin. So I said back to him, I said, "I'm not getting down just because I'm white." That's what I said. And he said, "Get down, white boy, you're an alien." And I said this before. Things got really confusing for me because I never heard the term alien used as immigration status. I only knew of aliens from movies like, E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That's what I knew about aliens. And so now, things got really confusing. I said, "I'm not getting down. I'm not an alien," I tell him. And so now, and he's inebriated. His eyes are red from the cane juice, and he points his M16 in the back row at me and my twin brother. He says, "Get down now, white boy. You are an alien." So, of course, I comply and I get down. But the whole time I'm mumbling, "I'm not an alien. I'm not an alien." But I was. And when I get out, he starts asking me for my passport. I'm trying to explain. I said, "I'm a Liberian boy." I said, "I've been here since Tubman time. I speak Liberian English. My favorite food is Liberian, palm butter and rice. All of my friends are Liberian." And I'm like, "I've been here, I was way back." I'm speaking Liberian English too. "I've been here way back in the Jai. My man, why are you charging me so?" So I'm telling him all this. And finally he listens and he lets us go. But you see, the way I grew up, the place I was, my identity wasn't just as an American. In my soul, I also thought I was a Liberian. And it's really shaped who I am. And I think it's made me who I am as a person, as a pastor, as a Christian. And so because of my home in Liberia and all the time I've spent in Africa, it makes me want to do all I can to love everyone everywhere you go. It's shaped me that way. And then it's made me as a pastor make one of our great goals as a church to be filled with people like you here who will go out and love everyone everywhere that you go. That's the challenge. That's part of who we are at the Grove. If you don't know that about us, I hope you get that this morning. The Apostle John, and we're going to start in 1 John chapter 4 today, but in 1 John, John is writing, the apostle is writing to the church in Ephesus. And the church in Ephesus, you have to realize, was a port city and in the Middle East, and it was a trading spot. People from all over the Mediterranean region came to Ephesus to trade, and boats came in and out of there. So you had this multiracial, multinational mix of people in Ephesus. And so John writes to the Christians in the churches in and around Ephesus that, hey, no matter where people are from, who they are, you have to love them like a brother and a sister. So look at this text with me. It's a little long, but it's so good. 1 John 4:7, dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God shows his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. Verse 11, dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. It's so good. Verse 12, no one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. Verse 16, God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. Verse 19, we love because he first loved us. Whoever claims to love God but hates a brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have never seen. Verse 21, and he has given us this command: anyone who loves God must also love their brother and their sister. Do you see how clear John is that we, as followers of Jesus Christ, are to love everyone everywhere we go? So how do we do that? How do we put this into practice? Today, I want to give you a few nuggets, a few ways, a few ideas to grab onto. And the first is this, and it's this: to see the good and what's valuable in everyone from everywhere. There's this moment that you know well in the Bible also, but back in the book of John, when Jesus meets a woman at the well. And we read this. You know the story well. So his friends, his disciples had wandered off, and he's thirsty. It's the middle of the day. And we read a Samaritan woman, John 4:7, came to draw water. And Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone into town to buy some food. The Samaritan woman said to him, why are you a Jew? And I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? Because Jews do not associate with Samaritans. And so we have this interaction between two people of two different ethnicities, two different races. She's shocked that Jesus is talking to her because we read later, and we'll read in a minute, that the Jewish people, you know this well, despise the Samaritans. They despised them so much they called them dogs. Jews didn't even want the shadow of a Samaritan to touch them. They certainly would not use their utensils or drink from their cup like Jesus is asking this woman if he can have a drink from her cup. You have to picture the place of this tension where this is happening. This is at Jacob's well, and this is in the modern day town of Nablus, which is in the West Bank in Palestine. And today a Greek Orthodox church has been built around this well, St. Photini. And you can actually stand in this spot today. And now this conversation, Jesus and this woman, it happened more than 2,000 years ago. But if you go and stand in this same spot today, that exact same tension exists between peoples of two ethnicities and two races. And we can look at that, what's happening in Israel, and we can think, that's not right. But I can tell you this, that kind of racial and ethnic and nationality tension, it happens all over the world, And if we're honest, it happens in our country, in our cities, in our communities. And I'm sharing this today to say that Jesus Christ came to change that. Jesus Christ can break down those barriers. Jesus Christ can create people and crowds of people who want to love everyone everywhere they go. And it starts with this principle, like Jesus does, to see the good and the value in everyone everywhere. Jesus recognizes the value in this woman. He honors her by speaking to her and shows her the dignity that even her own people probably were not showing her, let alone other Jews. I said there were two moments that shaped my life and my value of love everyone everywhere you go. And the first I said was growing up and spending much of my life living in Liberia and in Africa. The second was this. After I graduated from high school in Monrovia, Liberia, my twin brother and I moved to La Mirada, California to go to Biola University. And at Biola, I finally chose a major, and my major was intercultural studies, which was their missions major at Biola. If I'm honest with you, I thought that was the easiest major for me. I thought, I know missions. If I major in this, it's going to be straight A's, very little hard work on the weekend. So I chose intercultural studies. But I learned so much, and I realized how critical it was. I didn't just get an undergraduate in intercultural studies. I got a master's degree in intercultural studies. And one of the things that program helped me to see and realize is that people groups from all over the world, they all have something about them that is good and valuable. That everyone from everywhere has something in them that's good and valuable. We read this in the Bible about the Imago Dei. It's just that we forget it. That all people have something that God has put in them that is divine and good. It's just that we sometimes miss it. When I travel the world, and sometimes I go to a new country that I've never been to before, I'm always shocked at some of the things they value. I go, oh man, that's amazing. We need that back where we are. The more I travel, the more you travel, the more you see how beautiful and good and valuable the customs and culture are of people from all over the world. God has made it that way. We sometimes miss it. I know people that have literally said to me, I'm never leaving America again. That's what they say. I'm never leaving again. I'm like, you don't know what you're missing. I've traveled to somewhere over 40 different countries, and I wrote down a few of the things that I've grown to learn to value of people from other places around the world. I'll start with Malawi, and many of you have been there. Malawans, I learned, I lived there for a few years, are naturally polite and soft-spoken. People in Malawi, they don't raise their voice. I don't know if you know this, but Americans can be loud. And I had to learn this the hard way. When we moved there, I wasn't just teaching at African Bible College, I also was coaching the soccer team. And so our first match, I do what American coaches do. What's our coach's number one job during the game? Number one job? To yell at people. That's it. You got no other job. Forget about strategy. Just yell at people. And so I go out there. Now I want you to know I was only yelling positive and encouraging things. All right. I was like the K-Love coach, just positive and encouraging things. Like, hey, Limba Connie, could we see some hustle? Your grandmother could catch that guy. Just things like that to help them out. Chamwemwe, hey, you missed the goal by so much, I'm going to send you to the optometrist on Monday. They appreciated this kind of encouragement. And so, but I realized this, 3 games into the season, it hits me that I'm loudly encouraging my players the entire game. And the coach, of the other team. He's not saying a word. He's not yelling. And then I realized game 3, my entire team had moved 50 yards down the field. I'm not making this away from me. They don't want to be anywhere near this guy yelling like that. So I learned, hey, you can't do that. And I love that value. Thailand. I've been to Thailand a couple of times. Thai people, they're gentle and kind. It's known as the land of smiles. How do you like that? Brazil. I went there with my sons for the World Cup. They have this deep passion for music and celebration and soccer. Canadians. We have Canadians here at the Grove every week. They're known for being polite, and they are. I love Canadians. Mexico, I've been there quite a few times, and I think I've learned enough about Latin American culture that they're extremely family-oriented. Family means, it seems like more than anything else. I love how in many homes, when I've been invited in, it's multi-generations living there. Grandma's usually in the kitchen making something amazing. But their core identity is tied to the family. We can learn from that. Haitians. I've been to Haiti a number of times. In Haiti, they have this practice called conbit. And whenever you're going to do something hard, let's say make your farm or build a house, you tell all the neighbors on Saturday, I want to invite you to conbit. And conbit means everyone in the community comes together, and for that day, they work for free. They build your house. All you have to do is provide food and something to drink and some good music. That's what's required. The Greeks view hospitality as a sacred duty. They have this word philoxenia, which means love for the stranger. When you're a stranger, they show love. Australians have never met a stranger. You show up, they say what? Another shrimp on the barbie. That's what they say. So our great goal as a church has always been to be a multicultural community of followers of Jesus Christ. And thank you. That's what we're trying to do here. And I just want to invite you to come in and invite in everyone that you can. And that vision over the last 20 years, I've seen it coming to fruition, happening. I saw it accelerate over the last few years when we started Justice University. I hoped this would happen, but I didn't know it would happen. And maybe you don't know this, that every day on this campus, we have people from more than 20 different nations. I asked some of them to say hi to you this morning. So here's a few of them. They're going to say hi to you.
My name is Eric Monier, and I'm from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
My name is Damian, and I'm from Macedonia.
Hi, I'm Moses Damalik, and I'm from South Sudan.
My name is Nathan. I'm from the Ivory Coast. My mom's from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and my dad's also from the Ivory Coast.
Hi, my name is Kei Takashi. I'm from Tokyo, Japan.
My name is Koki. I'm from Japan.
My name is Shina from Japan.
My name is Joan. I'm from Colombia.
My name's Kezi, and I'm from Blantyre, Malawi.
Hi, I'm Micaela, and I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Yate Benashe Malela Chegenshke. I'm from the Navajo Nation.
Zanangandujizi. I'm from Lilongwe, Malawi.
Hi, my name is Chloe, and I'm from Canada and Grenada.
My name is Vic, and my family is from Ukraine.
Hi, my name is Sydney, and my grandparents immigrated from Guyana and moved to Canada.
My name is Ricardo Perez, and I'm from Chihuahua, Mexico.
My name is Joseph. My family's from Lebanon.
My name is David, and my mom's from Colombia.
My name is Krista.
My name is Grizz, and we're from Nogales.
Hello, everyone. My name is Coach Kwame. I'm from Ghana, the motherland.
Love it, love it, love it. The last one was Levi. Levi's our soccer coach here, and he's a bush boy like me, but he's from Ghana, and he's speaking Tree. I asked the question, how do we love everyone everywhere we go? The next challenge I want to give you is this: let go and put on. Now, I'm going to have to explain that. What do I mean by that? When I talked about our family moving from America to Liberia, we did what a lot of Americans try to do when they go to another country. We tried to take a bit of America with us, all right? And so my parents packed up a giant cargo a plywood cargo box, 8 by 8 by 8 cargo box. And they put everything in there from America that they thought we valued and would want in Liberia. So they put in there Victorian furniture. They put in there mattresses. They put in there a china cabinet in China. My mother even put in there a Van Gogh reproduction painting by the only guy in America that was authorized to paint Van Goghs. That was I'm not making this up. And then they put in there a lawnmower and an electric typewriter, even though all we had was kerosene lanterns at night. There's no electricity, but that's all in this cargo bag, and they sent it to Liberia. So it gets there finally months after we arrived, and somehow they got it back in the bush, and we unpacked that in our house. And then we had only been living there for about 3 years in this bamboo mat house on stilts about this high off the ground. And one afternoon it catches on fire in the kitchen. And it catches on fire, starts to burn. And the Van Gogh reproduction starts to burn. It catches on fire. The mattresses burn. The Victorian furniture is burning. The typewriter, it's like Back to the Future. Nobody knew what to do with this in the bush, but that caught on fire. And that's burning. And my dad had been out on a construction site building classrooms, and he finally shows up and the house is in flames, but he really wants to get the china cabinet. So he runs in the burning house and he grabs, how the china cabinet, there's a top section, the lower section. He grabs the top section and he pulls it off the base, but he realizes there's no way he can lift it by himself. And now he said to us later, he said, I didn't care about the china cabinet, but inside the china cabinet, my mom had just made Christmas berry jam. It's from a jungle berry, and he loved the stuff. It was like jungle crack. He could put that on everything. And so he said, I wanted the jam. So he's holding the china cabinet. The house is burning, and he's yelling at his carpenter. He's saying, hey, George, get it. And George is at the door, and the house is, and George is going, no, I'm not coming in. And he's saying, Reverend, let's go. Reverend, let's go. And finally, my dad said he had to let go of the china cabinet. And he said it hurt him as he saw it crash to the floor and shatter, and the jam went everywhere, and the china cabinet's gone, and he ran out of the house. But I thought later it was a picture of our house and him letting go of all of the things from America we brought with us. And it's true for all of us. If we're going to reach people from somewhere else, we're going to have to let go of some of our own biases and preferences if we are going to connect with the people we're trying to reach and to love. We all ended up on the grass airfield in front of our bamboo mat house. It's burning. The flames are hot. I was in awe, as a 9-year-old. I'd never seen anything burn this hot before. And our house is going, and right next to me, I can still picture like it was yesterday, was my older sister. She's a little older than me, Lisa. And she's bawling. She loved that bamboo mat house. She kept goats. All her pet goats were in the house. They drove me nuts. They smell. But anyway, she loved the goats and cats. She had cats. They were all fine, by the way. They're all fine. They all got out. But anyway, so she's crying and crying. And then I noticed that she's run out in such a hurry, she doesn't have her shoes on. I've shared this before. And she's barefoot. And next to her is her really good Liberian Sapo friend named Sophie. And Sophie knew that our mother never let us leave the house without shoes because my mother was afraid we would get jiggers and tapeworm. And so Sophie gets down on the grass airfield and she pulls off her slippers, and then she lifts up Lisa's foot one at a time, and she puts her slippers, her sandals on Lisa's feet. So now Lisa is literally walking in the shoes of a Liberian. And that's why I say we don't just need to let go of some of our biases and preferences, but we need to put on some of the values of the people that we're trying to love and reach. In my cross-cultural program at Biola University, I was fortunate enough to have two of the country's leading cultural anthropologists, Dr. Sherwood Lingenfelter and Dr. Marvin Mayers, and they've written books on this idea. And they challenge us to become 150% Christians. And the idea is this: can you give up some, if let's say you're going to pick a place. Let's say you're going to Guatemala. Would you be willing to give up some of your Americanness, let's say 25%, and just be 75% American? And then would you be willing to take on some of what it is to be Guatemalan? You can't be 100% Guatemalan, but maybe you take on a 75% of Guatemalan values and culture and become a 150% Christian. And then they share this, that the grounding for this value is in Jesus Christ, is in the incarnation of Jesus himself. Because Jesus, when he came to earth, he had to take off, let go some of his divine power and take on what it was to be human. We read this in John chapter 1:14. The Word became flesh and dwelled among us. I like how the Message Bible reads. We read this, the Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. How do you like that? So Jesus is our example of letting go and putting on. He let go, for example, of some of his omnipresence. His friends were really frustrated with him, and they said, hey, if you had been here 3 days ago, Lazarus would not have died, but he was somewhere else. He let go of some of his omnipotence, some of his divine power. When he's on the cross, he could have called down angels from heaven to rescue him and defeat the Romans, but he didn't. He let go of some of his divine privilege and some of his divine affluence. And we read that instead of being the King of Kings, he became a servant to all, and he washed people's feet. Do you see what I mean? That Jesus let go of some of his divine nature in order to put on our humanness. And in the same way, our challenge is to let go of some of the things that we think must be a part of who I am in order to value others and come close to them. That leads me to this final thought, and it's this, that how do we become people who love everyone everywhere? It's to come close. I want to share one more example from Jesus and from a Samaritan that he talks about. Again, this is in a story this time. And again, this is Luke chapter 10. It's a story that you know well, but it's so powerful. And we read this. I'll start in verse 29. A man had asked him, how do I inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, what does the law says? And it says, love God with all your and I'll start in verse 27. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus said, all right, do this. Then the man has a follow-up question, and he says, well, who's my neighbor? I love how the Living Bible says, the man wanted to justify his lack of love for some kinds of people, so he asked, which neighbor? Do I really have to love all of them? Some of them are just a mess. I really don't want to love them. And so then Jesus replied. So Jesus answered when he says, who's my neighbor? Who do I have to love? Jesus tells a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. Verse 31, by chance, a priest came along. This is like the modern day pastor. But when he saw the man laying there, he crossed on the other side of the road. So he's avoiding him instead of coming close. And then a Levite walked over. Now the Levite is like someone who's always at church. They're an usher, greeter. They lead a small group on Wednesday night. And the Levite looked at the man lying there, and he passed on the other side. He stays at a distance rather than coming close. Then a despised Samaritan, that's how the text reads, came along. And when he saw the man, he felt compassion on him. And then Jesus ends with a question, verse 36. Now, which of these three would you say was a neighbor to the man? And they said, the one who showed mercy, the one who showed love, the one who showed compassion. So Jesus is showing us here how to come close, even to the people who our society has been opposed to. Every Jew in Israel was opposed to and against the Samaritans, but Jesus came to say that's different for us. In Luke chapter 6, where he says, love your enemies, what Jesus is saying, he says it's easy to love people who love you, people who dress like you and look like you and talk like you and agree with you and vote like you. It's easy to love those people. But the real challenge, Jesus says, is to love people who our society says should be your enemies. And so my challenge is, can you come closer? There's this subversive question running through this story that Jesus tells, is that can you show compassion and love for people who society has said you need to be against? That's a really big question for us to wrestle with. And then become God's channel of blessing for those people. You know, as Christians, we talk a lot about the things that please God. We know that Bible reading pleases God. Prayer pleases God. Faith pleases God. Worshiping pleases God. Those are all great and powerful things. What we don't talk about enough, in my opinion, and this is what 1 John 4 is all about, is that loving other people, especially the ones who are different than us, is what really pleases God. So the challenge is to go out and live that way. Love everyone, everywhere you go. The story that Jesus tells, it ends with a question: who is my neighbors? How do I love them? And it's obvious in the story to come close to them, so come close. And I'll end with this because with one more example from my family with my mother. So when we moved to Liberia, I mentioned a few weeks ago that one of the first things my mother did, because she saw it was a great need, was to start a clinic on our back porch. And so every day she holds clinic. Here's a picture of my mom with, this is a girl named Comfort. Comfort has epilepsy and had fallen into a fire and burned the side of her face. She lived in our house for a month, and my mother treated until it healed up just beautifully there. That's Comfort. That's one of her patients. But one of the first patients that I remember clearly was a man who came to see my mother, an old man, she describes him. I talked to her this week about it, who came to see her with a tropical ulcer on the side of his leg about the size of a softball. And a tropical ulcer indents into your flesh, and it goes all the way to the bone. And so the first time she saw it, she cleaned it, she dressed it, and she said, you're going to have to come back every day. If you don't come back every day, the infection will return, and you got to come every day. So every day he would come to our house, and every day for 3 months, she would have 2 chairs that they would sit in. She would sit in one, and he would sit next to her, and then she would take his foot and put it on her lap. And you have to picture this. When I talk about come close, my mother was born in Tupelo, Mississippi. She grew up in Jackson, Mississippi. We left from Picayune, Mississippi to go to Liberia. And in the world that she grew up in Mississippi, people of different races never came close. Their paths just didn't cross. And now she's in Liberia, and every day she's close enough to take this Liberian man's foot and put it in her lap and scrub it clean and clean all of the pus off of it, and then put the antibiotic ointment on it and tape it again. When I talked to her this week, she says, when I treated his foot every day, she said, you know what, Palmer, it's the strangest thing. I was never repulsed by it because of it. I never resented that I had to do this every day. She said, when I sat there with his foot in my lap, the only thing I felt was love. And she said, and I know that it was only God who could put that love in me. And she wanted me to know that. She said, it was just God and only God that put that love in me. And God has a way of doing that when we're willing to come close. And so a few years after that, she wrote a poem, and I brought it to share with you today. And she titled it, Because of This Love. She writes, I'm thankful God has given me this love for the Liberian people. Without this love, I could not serve. Because of this love, I can reach my arms around them. I can dress their festering tropical ulcers. Because of this love, I can sleep in their village huts and eat their food and walk their jungle trails. Because of this love, I can leave my children, my friends, my family, security and comforts, and count them as nothing next to the joy of serving. Because of this love, I can even risk my life and the life of my children, knowing that it is folly to give what you cannot keep, to gain what you cannot lose. Because of this love, I can stand in the tropical sun to teach the Bible to those who will listen. I can suffer the chills and fever of malaria, the flies, the mosquitoes, the incessant tropical rains, the danger of flying in little planes over thick tropical forest, or the discomfort of riding over dusty, bumpy roads or trudging through mucky jungle trails with the fear of snakes and spiders, the noise of the jungle drums that make the hot tropical nights even more restless. Because of this love, when we come back to the United States, I feel like a pilgrim passing through until I go back home. Home to Africa, home to the people I love, the people God has given me to reap for Him because of this love. Yeah, thank you, Brian. So my mother says, when I talked to her this last week, she says, now I'm going back. She's made me promise to go with her back to Liberia next September because it's the 50-year anniversary of our college, and she turns 100 years old. And so we're going back. And I share her story and my heart on this because it shaped me. And I simply want to put this challenge in your heart today, that if God so loved the world, then will you? Will you go out from this place today and love everyone, everywhere that you go? All right, would you stay in your seats as Ty shares this song? I just want you to take in the words as he goes through this and make these words your prayer today. Thank you, Ty.